Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey, right here on the Dice Tower. Today we're going to be taking a look at Spectacular from Chilifox Games from designers Eilif Svensson and Åsmund Svensson. So let's get down to the table and take a look, shall we? Now, generally speaking, you're going to gain points on a number of different things. If you're using the missions mode, you're going to have these missions that are going to give you points based on whatever the tile says if you have completed the task that it wants you to complete. There's also going to be kind of a set collection thing that's down here that basically what's going to do is for as many unique animals that you have in your play area, you're going to get a certain number of points. You're also going to be scoring your different color habitats that are on the board, and that's probably the trickiest part of scoring. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take the number of pips on all of the dice that you've placed in each of your different habitats, add all those pips up together, and then for all of the breeding tiles that look like this, that have a die on them, you're going to multiply the number of pips by how many breeding tiles you have for that specific habitat on your board. There's also scoring your entrance, which only happens at the end of the first round, and you're basically going to be able to score points for all of your dice groups that are connected to your entrance, and that's basically scoring how many pips are on each of the dice that are connected to these three spaces here next to your entrance. But that's only done after the end of round one. At the end of round two, final scoring happens where all of your habitats are scored, all of your mission tiles are scored, and then your unique animals are scored at the end of the game as well. Whoever has the most points is the winner. But how do you get there? All right, you get there basically by a lot of simultaneous action taking. So what's going to happen first is that everybody's going to have the ability to choose one tile or one die from their supply board that's up here, and whatever they choose, whether it's one of these four tiles or one of these four dice, they're going to place it right here in this preparation area. And then they're also going to be able to choose one die or one tile from their personal supply area and put it right here in the W area. And then once everybody has chosen one thing from up here and one thing from over here, then we go into a build phase where we're going to, in either order, doesn't matter from which preparation area they're coming from, you're going to be able to build those things into your tableau. And then once we have both done that, we're going to go into the preparation for the next turn. And that consists of a couple of things. So for example, you see here, my opponent used one of her tiles, so she gets to take another tile and replace it, just like that. I didn't use any of mine, so nothing comes from there. Then what's going to happen here is our supply boards are actually going to switch places. So this one will come over here, and this one will come over here. Once that's happened, we go back to phase one, where we can choose dice and tiles from these two areas, putting them in these two preparation areas. And now that we've all chosen what we're going to take, we get to take and put into play those new spots. And this one's going to come down here. And then we go back to the new preparation phase. I get to flip over one of these things here, and my opponent didn't use any of those, so nothing happens here, but these get swapped again. And that's how the game continues until you've done your first 8 turns, which means that this entire board on both of these are going to be empty. And so at the end of the first round, the first thing we're going to do is you have the ability to use worker tokens. Now, you do have the ability to use the worker tokens during the round, but one of the things that worker tokens can be used for is adding or subtracting from the pips on a die. So for example, if I wanted to, I could change this 5 right here into a 6 by using this wild token. Since I already used my yellow die worker token, I would have to use my wild here, so I think I'll go ahead and do that and change this into a 6. Now, the reason I can change that one into a 6 is because I have a completed worker tower here. You can't place a 6 next to on any tile except for your star animal until you have an adjacent watchtower that is completed. My opponent, however, could not change this 5 into a 6 because that tower isn't completed yet. So even though they have a wild token here, they don't have a completed tower, so that can't be a 6 just yet. But later on, if they're able to finish that tower, they could use this wild token to turn that into a 6 later on. The second thing we do at the end of the first round is we score our entrances. So here, we're going to score all of the pips of the dice that are in the same dice group and connected to the entrance. So all of these dice here are connected to the entrance leading back. So we're going to take the pips on all of these dice and add them together, and that's going to be this person's entrance score after the first round. 29 points for player 2. And then this person over here is going to get 32. This one doesn't count because it's not connected to in that chain of dice groups to my entrance. So that was 32 for player 1. And now that we are both done with our entrance scoring, we resupply our supply boards. In order to resupply your supply boards, you take one die of each color, roll them, and put them on the outside of the dotted line on each of the player boards. You're also going to take one tile from each of the stacks here and place them out there as well. But in the second round, in a 2 to 4 player game, you're going to take an additional 4 dice and put them on the inside as well. And then once you're done resupplying the supply boards, you're ready to start round 2 by doing that first phase of choosing a tile or a die from here and choosing a tile or a die from here, and then second phase of building, and so forth and so on, until all of the things from this side of your board are completely gone, which will be 7 turns. At the end of that, you count points and see who's the winner. Okay, so as far as scoring after the second round is complete, so we basically go to our green habitats first. And the way we score green habitats, I explained it a little bit at the beginning, but this will make it more clear. You take the pips that are in a contiguous habitat here. So I have 5, 9, 10, 11, and then 16 all together. And you multiply the 16 times how many breeding tiles have dice on them. So that's 16 times 1, so I would get 16 points for my green habitat. This green habitat over here only has 3, but it has 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, times 2, because they had 2 breeding tokens that had dice on them. So that's 9 times 2, that's 18. So even though they had a smaller habitat, they had it structured better, so they scored more points on it. Then we move on to the next one, the yellow one, and this one's going to give me 6, 12, 17, 18, 19 times 1, so that's 19 points there. And then this part over here isn't part of this habitat, so it won't count towards this habitat's scoring, but they have 5, 10, 13, 15 times 1, so that's 15 points for their yellow habitat. Blue habitat over here has 10, 14, 16, 15, 16 times 1, so that is 16 points there. Over here, they have 2 breeding tiles, but only one of them has a die on it, so that's only a multiplier of 1, so that is 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, 16 times 1, so that's 16 points for their blue habitat. Over here, you have this gray habitat here, so that's going to be 10, 14, 17 times 1. So there we have that. And then over here, we have this habitat here, which is going to be 5, 8, 10, 13 times 1. Now we come to towers. You're going to get points from each tower that has 3 dice adjacent to it. And if it doesn't have 3 dice adjacent to it, it doesn't score. But here we have 5, 16, and then we have 26 plus 5 more, 31 points for player 2. Over here, I have this tower that is complete and has 3 dice. So that's 8, 11. And then this one has the same 3 dice around it. So that's going to be 16, 22, and 28. But this one only has 2 dice around it, so that doesn't count. So I only get the 12, 17, 28 for my towers. And then we look at the animals and we count how many unique animals I have in my boards. I have 12. That gives me 21 points. And over here they have 11. So they get 13 points. And then we look at our mission tiles. Now, this one says that I have to have a habitat of 5 next to another habitat of at least 5. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 in my green here, but notice they only get 4 here and only got 4 here and I only got 4 over here as well. So I didn't actually complete this one. This one says that I have to have 4 dice around my star animal that have to be of different colors. And right now I have 5 dice around them, but they're only 3 different colors. So I didn't get this one either. And this one, I have to have exactly 14 pips on the 3 spaces adjacent to my entrance. I got 6 to 8 and 10. So I didn't get that either. Did horribly bad for my mission cards. Over here, however, this one you need to get 4 breeding tiles that are adjacent to each other. Almost got it here, but wasn't able to pull it off anywhere. So they didn't get this one. This one says that you have 4 dice that are not adjacent to each other that have exactly 3. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're not adjacent to any other 3s. So they scored those 15 points. And then you have your maximum color pips, subtract your minimum color pips, and it has to be equal to or greater than 13. So 21 to 9, is that the same? No, that's 12. So bad. So they missed this one as well, but they did get an extra 15 points added here to my nada. You add all those points up, and whoever has the most points is the winner, and that's how you play Spectacular. So that's about that for Spectacular. This is a pretty interesting game, frankly, and there are a lot of nature games coming out right now, and this is squarely within that genre of games that just seem to be really, really, really popular. There seems to be 1,000,001 nature games out there right now, and it's really strange because a few months ago, as far as I'm concerned at least, I didn't really have my finger on that pulse. It really didn't seem like there were too many nature games out there, but now it seems like there's one around every corner. So it's a pretty crowded genre. And so you can really kind of pick and choose what you like and what you don't like. And you can probably find a game that really does well what you like and stick with that. Now, with that being said, I do think that this kind of falls, at least on a microcosmic level, it falls into that same genre as Cascadia does, where you're going to be kind of building out your tableau or your player area, and you're going to be populating it with the animals that you want to populate it with. Understand, I think those 2 games are quite different in how they score, and I think one is a little bit more of a thematic way to score, and one is, and this one is a little bit more mechanical as far as how you're scoring those points. But at least there's that correlation and there's that difference that's going to be kind of where I want to go with this review and my pros and cons. So we'll come back to that and during the rating, and let's get to my pros and cons. My first pro is going to be the fact that this is a tile placement game, and I really do enjoy tile placement games. And then we're going to slip in my second pro here in a little bit, and that is going to be the fact that it is a drafting game. I really enjoy games that have both drafting and tile placement because I like how those two work together a lot, actually. So take that for what it's worth. If you don't like either of those, or if you especially don't like both of them put together, this is probably going to be one that you want to steer away from. But I really enjoyed both of those aspects of the game because you're not only drafting dice, you're also drafting tiles. And that's where a lot of the interaction of the game falls into place, is in that drafting area. It had a little bit of a wonky system at first where you're taking these supply boards and you're moving them around the table in between each of those simultaneous selection turns, which I thought was a little cumbersome. It's not that bad, especially if you have enough play area. You can just slide them around. It doesn't really have to be that cumbersome, but that was my initial impression. But the more I did it, the less I felt that it was cumbersome. But I really did enjoy that because you can see what's coming. You can see what your opponent is choosing. So I liked that interaction because it really is, at its heart, I guess you could say, a multiplayer solitaire. You can just do whatever you do, and nobody can really mess with it except for that draft. I can see what everybody's going for, and if it helps me and hurts somebody else at the same time as far as what they're doing, that's probably the thing that you want to go for. Because it's simultaneous action selection, that does tend to speed the game up a little bit. But because there's also a level of analysis paralysis there, it can also kind of hurt if you have too many people trying to get all of the information at the same time. So be careful with that. But for me, those two things together, the drafting and the tile placement, really work well together. I really like that a lot. My third pro of the game is going to be the fact that you can actually manipulate the dice with your worker tokens. So those worker tokens are really going to be my pro here. I like the fact that they included it, but I also liked the fact that they were ones and dones. You got 5 different worker tokens, one for each of the colors, and then 1 wild. I really did like their effectiveness, and I also liked their flexibility because you could use them pretty much anytime you wanted, but sometimes it might be better to kind of wait because they are ones and dones. Once you've used them, you can't use them again. So, and there's no way to flip them back over. So I did like that mechanism of manipulating the pips on the dice. I also liked that you could, didn't mention this in the play, but it didn't come up, but you could also flip from 1s to 6s and from 6s back to 1s. So I really did think that that was a cool way to manipulate the pips on the dice, and it made gameplay that much more fun. My fourth pro of the game is going to be the mission cards. Now, I was not very good at finishing these most of the time, but I like the fact that they're there. The rulebook does say that you should maybe stay away from using missions mode in your first few plays, so you can just get good at spacing your tiles out the right way and getting the right number of pips on those and all of that kind of thing, and then throw missions in later on. I can go either way on that. I think the missions aren't so terribly difficult that you need to leave them out in the first few plays of the game, but it's a good growth pattern to kind of get good with the game and its mechanisms and then add this other thing in, because it is another layer of thought processes that go on top of what is a pretty simple basic game. Most of the time when I'm playing games with people, something like this I usually like to just throw in there because I feel like it's part of what the game is supposed to be and how it's supposed to be played. Take that for what it's worth. I really enjoyed the missions tiles, and I think you'd be fine just throwing them in at your first couple of games. Another pro for me was another way that you score points, and that is the sect collection, getting those number of unique animals into your park. And I really thought that was a cool thing because it's thematic. You're building a park that's going to draw customers in, and your customers are going to want to see as many different animals as they can. And I thought that was a great little thematic way to have another way to score points other than just pips on a die and just mission cards. And so I thought the number of unique animals, and they really do reward you well. If you can get all 17, you're going to score 80 points. Now, you're going to have a concerted effort to do that. It's rare, probably, that you'll be able to pull it off, but it is possible. If you get 16, 63 points. If you get 15, it's 51 points. So you can score a good 21 points if you get just 12. And I've found that more often than not, as long as you're not doing something really bad, 12, 13, and 14 is probably where you're going to fall as far as unique number of animals in your park. And that's 21, 30, or 40 points. I like that. That's rewarding. And I like the fact that they chose to do that because it's a thematic way to score points, and I think it fits well. Another thing that I really thought was cool about the game, and the reason I think it's a little cool is because it kind of stepped away from what everybody has been doing, and that is using a lot of plastic inserts for storage solutions. They decided to use tuck boxes. And so all of the different things in the game fit into all of these little tuck boxes, and I just thought that was a really interesting way to go about storage solutions. Everything fits in all of these different boxes. Each player is going to basically get their own box that has their own set of starting resources and components in them. And then all of the other things are kind of packed away where they need to be. So setting up the game is actually not very difficult because of this kind of off the beaten path storage solution. So I wanted to mention it as one of my pros. My only real con for the game is that scoring can be a little convoluted. It's not difficult, there's just a lot of it. And when you're doing all of this scoring 4, 5, or 6 times around the table, you've added another half hour to the game of just scoring points. So again, it is almost an expected con at this point, and there's a lot of games out there where scoring points at the end of the game takes a considerable amount of time. With a 2-player game, it's not that bad. Single-player game, even less so. But when you get into 3, 4, 5, this goes up to 6 players. That's a lot of scoring and tallying points, and more often than not in games that I've played, people want to double check each other, and people want to be double checked because adding numbers unless you're using your phone, well, that gets a little difficult. It is what it is, but I just wanted to mention it, and it is kind of a con, but it's almost one of those freebie cons that everybody gets a free pass on anyway, because if the gameplay is fun, then hey, who cares about waiting around for a few extra minutes to score the points and see who won? But I wanted to mention it because a lot of people have been giving me feedback where they don't necessarily like games where you have to spend a lot of time calculating your score at the end. But it is what it is. Now, as far as a rating is concerned, I am going to say that the pros outweighed the cons in a very significant way. I had a lot of fun playing this game, so I am going to give it a strong 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed the game a lot. It's going to fall into that same category of those people who enjoy Cascadia are probably going to enjoy something like this. However, I do think that for all of the even with the expansion thrown into Cascadia, I think that might be an easier experience than this is. So this is probably a little heavier than Cascadia is concerned. So this might be a next step away from Cascadia because you're still doing basically the same thing on a microcosmic level because you're really kind of thinking large swaths of land in Cascadia, whereas this is a park that you're going to have people coming to. But you're doing a very similar thing in that populating different parts of your area, the different habitats and so forth and so on, and scoring points for those different habitats. So it is I guess you could say it's a tenuous connection, but it is there. I really enjoyed this though, and I see it doing well in my game group, but you'll have to see how it fares in yours. It's an 8 out of 10 for me though. Thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.